Do you know what's something I cannot be? And that's a stand-up comedian. Because a stand-up comedian is funny. I'm not very funny. For example, let me tell you a joke. Hey everyone, welcome to the top 10 list. Welcome to my top 10 favorite stand-up comedians, in my opinion, of all time. Yeah, this is all, again, very subjective. Like all my top 10 lists are very subjective. And I thought I'd talk about something different other than movies and television. I thought I'd talk about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is something that I love to watch. I love watching it. It cheers me up and stuff, especially when I'm in a depressed mood and stuff. I just like to watch stand-up comedians and I love to laugh. I love to laugh. Who doesn't love to laugh? Comedy's the best medicine, right? Well, according to some people, like me. Anyways, I thought I'd just count down my top 10 personal favorite stand-up comedians. Mostly, this is stand-up comedy. Like, there are actors and actresses, actors on this top 10 list, but I'm counting them more as stand-up comedians and not their acting capability. This is just them as stand-up comedians. So, just saying. Alright, and let's get to it. Here's my top 10 favorite stand-up comedians, in my opinion. And as always, for our top 10 list, you gotta have your honorable mentions. My honorable mentions are Jerry Seinfeld, Ricky Gervais, Norm Macdonald, Sarah Silverman, Rodney Dangerfield, Chris Rock, and Stephen Wright. All great comedians, just couldn't make the top 10 list, but doing my top 10 was my number 10. My number 10 is, controversy right here, Louie CK. Louie CK is... Okay, yeah, I know a lot of stuff he's done. Yeah, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that stuff. He's a funny guy. Like, this guy is a very funny dude. He had a very funny show called Louie, which was a very funny show. A show literally about nothing. Seinfeld was supposed to be about nothing, but Louie is literally about nothing. Louie C.K. talked about real things and stuff, and he talked about things that really, push the boundaries. Really push the boundaries and stuff, and... some of it's fucking hilarious. It's so real, it's so bleak and so dark. Like, my favorite kind of comedy is dark comedy. And Louie C.K. he knows dark comedy and he knows how to push my laugh buttons. Like, he is just so funny and stuff. He's so funny that comedians like Dane Cook stole basically a lot of his material and stuff. And yeah, I think he's super funny. And I'm not going to talk about his controversy, but as a stand-up comedian, he's hilarious. Coming in number 9 is Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy is on this list mostly just because of Eddie Murphy Raw. That's the only thing I've watched of a stand-up comedian. I've seen him on SNL and stuff, but that doesn't count. Well, sort of. Eddie Murphy Raw is just all stand-up, so that's why he's on this list, because I love Eddie Murphy Raw. Eddie Murphy Raw is hilarious, and I don't want to spoil any of the jokes. Just go watch Eddie Murphy Raw, and you'll know exactly why Eddie Murphy's on this list, because it's hilarious. Coming in number 8 is Robin Williams. Robin Williams is actually one of my favorite actors of all time. Like, I love Robin Williams. Like, when he passed away, it, hurt me. It hurt me. Especially because he passed away the same year my dad passed away. It stung really hard. And Robin Williams has always been, the genie from Aladdin for me, or Mrs. Doubtfire, or, Sean from Good Will Hunting. He's always been part of my life, Robin Williams, and his stand-up is hilarious. I used to watch him on Mork and Mindy and stuff, and I remember his episode on Whose Line Is It Anyway and stuff, but I used to watch, a lot of his things. There's a stand-up he performed for the U.S. soldiers, and it is hilarious, and how he, makes fun of the national anthem. Super, super funny. Robin Williams just has this energy about him that makes him funny and stuff. He has, funny impressions and stuff, but it's his energy. Like Jim Carrey, it's his energy that makes him so funny and so hysterical, and just we wish we were that coked out and stuff, and we were that funny, just like Robin Williams, and yeah, freaking love Robin Williams. Coming in number 7 is Patton Oswalt. Patton Oswalt is a really funny guy. This is a straight nerd comedian. Everyone knows that I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, I'm a dork and stuff, so you gotta have a nerdy comedian here, and Patton Oswalt is the greatest nerd comedian. There's a lot of nerdy comedians that I can't stand. They make the stereotypical jokes, and Superman reference, Batman reference and stuff, and sometimes it's just not that funny. See, I don't have Kevin Smith on here, because Kevin Smith's not a stand-up comedian. When he does his Q&As, and, an evening with Kevin Smith, that's not stand-up comedy. If that counted as stand-up comedy, I'd have him on this list, but that does not count as stand-up comedy. Patton Oswalt is a nerdy comedian that I love, because he talks about life, he talks about film, and he talks about being a nerd and stuff. And he wrote a book called The Silver Screen Fiend, which is this book right here. This is actually, like, my top 5 favorite books of all time. Like, if you haven't read this book yet, like, he wrote this book, Patton Oswalt, and this is a funny book, and it talks in depth about film and stuff, and knowledge of cinema and everything, and I love this book, and I love Patton Oswalt because of this book and his stand-up comedy. He talks about, the way he talks about film, himself in the film industry and television industry and stuff, and the way he makes fun of himself and the industry itself is super funny, and that's why he's one of my all-time favorite comedians. Coming in number 6 is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle is another guy I grew up with. Like, I grew up with the Chappelle Show. Come on, Chappelle Show! Ooh. It's time to start the show. I love Dave Chappelle. And I think he is, again, one of the best stand-up comedians and stuff. And he just knocks out of the park every single time he just does a routine. It's so funny. The way he talks about, like, the native people is super funny. And one of my favorite acts is when he makes fun of Michael Richards after he did that, like, really bad thing at the comedy club, and then Dave Chappelle makes fun of him when he goes to the comedy club and stuff, and it is so funny. He talks about, like, Siegfried and Roy and everything. It's really funny, and he has a lot of stand-ups when he did the Chappelle Show and a lot of great skits, but just as a stand-up comedian, he just has this energy, and the way he talks about life, and the way he talks about white people, and the ghetto neighborhoods and stuff, it's so funny, and yeah, I love Dave Chappelle. Coming in number 5 is Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr is, you gotta have a Brit. Because, again, I love dark comedy and I love British wit. British comedy, again, love British comedy. Jimmy Carr is just hardcore. Like, if we're talking about, like, some of the roasts, like, he was on the roast of Rob Lowe, my God, he killed it. But that's not gonna count because it's a roast. Roast is not stand-up. That's why, Don Rickles is not on this list, because I've seen all the roasts with Don Rickles, but I've never watched any of Don Rickles' stand-up, and I know everyone's like, oh, you're missing out and stuff. I know. All in time. But Jimmy Carr, I've watched many of Jimmy Carr's stuff, and he is so funny, and just the way he handles the crowd, the way he talks about the crowd and stuff is just so funny. The way he talks about his sex life is funny. The way he deals with hecklers is just hilarious, and just, he has this, like, dry sense of humor that I just love. Coming in number 4 is Bill Burr. Bill Burr is it Bill Burr or Bill Barr? Like, some people say Bill Barr, but I say Bill Burr. Whatever. I call him Bill Burr. But anyways, I think this guy is super hysterical and stuff, and I do love his show, F for Family. F for Family is a really funny show. Just got recently into it, and when I watched the show, I watched some of his stand-up, and I watched, like, 4 or 5 of his skits and 4 or 5 of his shows, and just, they're really funny. Like, the way he talks about, like, the community and feminism and stuff, and the way, again, he pokes fun of it himself and everything, he's just really friggin' funny. He is very vulgar, kind of like Bob Saget. Like, he's just super, super vulgar and super rough and very, he doesn't give a shit. He has this not give a shit attitude, and just, he doesn't care what he says. And that's why I just absolutely love him. It creates this charm about him, just, I don't know, it's just, the stuff he's saying, it's so real, it's so funny, and I love it. Coming in number 3 is, of course, Richard Pryor. Yes, the one and only Richard Pryor. Everyone knows that he's one of the greatest stand-up comedians ever, and yeah, he is. He made a huge landmark for the African-American community in comedy. Like, this guy was one of the greatest, is the greatest, one of the greatest. I think he's one of the greatest. I love his movies. Like, he wrote Blazing Saddles, and he did the movie Stir Crazy, and he was in Superman 3 for some reason. But his comedy is funny. The way he talks about his community, the way he talks about his life, he talks about drugs. And again, he's so crass, and he's very sexual sometimes, and he doesn't care, and it's just hilarious. It's amazing, it's hilarious, it's Richard Pryor. Coming in number 2 is a very odd one, but I don't care. I think he's my favorite current stand-up comedian right now of all time. It's Anthony Jeselnik. Anthony Jeselnik is super dark, and again, I love dark comedy, and this is he probably goes the most darkest out of any comedian I've ever watched. Like, he makes, like, rape jokes, pedo jokes, like, murder jokes. Like, he goes so far, and he does not care. And I love that he doesn't care if he's famous, he doesn't care if people like him. He just goes balls out, and he He gives it. He just gives it to everyone, and it's funny. It's hilarious. Like, I loved his show, The Jeselnik Offense, and it got canceled for, of course, being offensive. And I watched his Netflix special, and it is hilarious. He's got a new one coming out this month, and very funny. He doesn't have a lot of specials, but the ones that he does have are gold. It's comedic gold, and I love it. I won't even spoil any of his jokes, but just watch his Netflix special, Thoughts and Prayers, and you will see how funny this guy is. And my number one favorite stand-up comedian is obviously George Carlin. I don't know if there is another answer other than George Carlin. It's George Carlin. Like, any movie he's in, whether it's like Bill and Ted or Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I fucking love George Carlin. George Carlin has been one of the greatest stand-up comedians since like the 80s and 70s and stuff. Like, he broke boundaries with his comedy, his vulgarity, his very sexual innuendo and stuff about drugs, sex, race, and everything. He pushes boundaries, and he created a lot of inspiration for stand-up comedians all around the world. A lot of comedians, almost every comedian, wants to be as funny, as vulgar, as in your face as George Carlin was, and no one can really succeed at that. Like, because he perfected it. He is like the comedian who created this persona of this like vulgar, sexual comedian stuff. Like, everyone's like vulgar because they want to be just like George Carlin and everything, and you can't be like George Carlin because there's only one George Carlin, and that's George Carlin. And in my opinion, I think he is probably the greatest stand-up comedian I've ever heard, and yeah, he's hilarious. So yeah, that was my top 10 favorite stand-up comedians in my opinion. So in the comment section below, please tell me, did you agree with this top 10 list? If not, give me your guys' top 10 favorite stand-up comedians in your guys' opinion. Comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and join the dark side.